Hi, welcome to a demonstration of Vectorworks Spotlight. For those completely new to Spotlight, think of it as a combination of applications with the ease of use of that popular sketching program, the graphic capabilities of Photoshop, the accuracy and documentation ability of a CAD application, and the power of a relational database. With this complete range of capabilities, you can work in Spotlight using a model-based workflow. To start off right, you can create the model using hybrid 2D, 3D objects on design layers, which we will explain later in a little bit more detail. The model can then be represented appropriately in 2D plans and elevations, as well as in 3D perspective views. You can create the presentation in Vectorworks with viewports and worksheets in sheet layers, which is the way to produce the traditional documentation used by managers and crew to execute the project, such as plans, elevations, sections, and detail views. These views are essentially filters of the model, showing specific data sets from the model in a traditional projection with annotations which explicitly denote information such as dimensions and other notes that are implied but not otherwise called out in the model. Viewports are the way to present a model in this way in both 2D and 3D projections, and the way to calculate the project documentation along with quantities all in one place. When you do lists in Excel, they're separate from the drawings, making it necessary to duplicate parts of the model in multiple places, and this is not ideal. With Spotlight, you create one model that can generate the 2D, 3D, and the lists dynamically, all from the same source model to create the presentation in viewports onto sheet layers, where each sheet is laid out and set up for printing or distributing via PDF or the web. For example, Spotlight provides the tools to represent the lighting plot accurately as a model with all the data that's needed to describe the room, the hanging positions, the fixtures, the fixture data, everything necessary to begin lighting the show. It's not built with lines or images on the page, but with tools that are representative of the actual objects that comprise your project. So, you place a truss object or front-of-house rail in 3D space. You use that object to define a hanging position, which then has a name and knows how to number attached devices. The hanging position object interacts with focus points and lighting device objects to calculate design data such as throw distances and beam widths. The lighting device keeps track of its circuit, dimmer, channel, where it's focused, and which position it's hung on. In this way, Spotlight models the thought process for entertainment professionals, and that's what makes it appealing to the people in our industry. From an organizational perspective, this may seem quite different than pencil drafting with lines and a scale rule, or from other CAD workflows that you may be familiar with. But the benefits far outweigh the conceptual leap you are making as you eschew the 2D workflow in favor of a model-based workflow. For example, making changes late in the design process with a model-based workflow is significantly easier and more reliable, because instead of trying to adjust all the views that are affected by the change, you are instead directly applying the change to the model once, and then simply asking Vectorworks to recalculate all of the presentation views where that change affects the documentation. Control of what objects look like, or object attributes, such as color, texture, hatching, and line weight, is managed by the organizational drawing structure called classes. This is one of the two main drawing structures in Vectorworks. The other structure is called layers. All objects, whether nested or within other objects or at the top level, are each on a layer and in a class. The primary purpose of both layers and classes is to control the visibility of their members. For example, to present the rigging plan, you can set the class of the lighting devices to not visible to clarify the truss connections. To see the unit number of each fixture, you can set the unit number class to visible to show the unit number at the hanging point on each lighting device. You would see this class visible in a light plot, for example. At first, the functions of layers and classes may seem similar, especially since they both control visibility, and indeed, it is possible to temporarily lose track of an object if both its layer and class is set to invisible. So, for now, employ this simple guideline when starting to use layers and classes in your projects. Assign objects to layers to denote where the objects are, and use the object's class assignment to define what they are. It is also useful to think of layers as a container in which objects are placed, and to think of classes as a label or tag that members of each class wear. The program can be set up so that anything drawn in a particular class will take on the attributes assigned to the class. There are a few special cases that can override class attributes, however, such as certain functions associated with viewports and data visualization. This is an additional visual reference that you can apply to help your eye to scan what an object is, in addition to having complete control over what the members of a class look like. For special presentations of the model, you can override class attributes with the data visualization capability on a per viewport basis to change the look of a set of objects based on specific data values such as color assignment or unit type. So, in summary, our organizational system lets the designer place objects in 3D space and have complete control over the 2D graphic output as well. We'll look at how this system helps us present the model in a bit. The Spotlight toolset is activated with a command under the Tools menu. Our modeling and entertainment design tools are found logically grouped in tool sets. For example, the Rigging toolset contains parametric tools like the Insert Truss tool, Insert Connection tool, and Lighting Pipe and Stage Lift tools. Another example, Event Design, contains elements like stage decks, video screens, and speaker arrays. Additional tool sets include Visualization for lighting and setting cameras, as well as the Dimensioning toolset and the Detailing toolset. At the top of the window is the title bar, followed by the Drawing Window tab, and below that is the View bar. The View bar shows you how the drawing is being presented. For instance, which classes are active, which layers. The basic tool palette is above the Spotlight toolsets. If you hover over the selection tool, you'll see a tooltip with the name and the hotkey in parentheses to select the tool without clicking on it with the mouse. Each tool is associated with a set of modes in the toolbar. The modes are separated by light lines, which are the button groups. So there's 4 button groups of modes in the toolbar associated, for example, with the selection tool. Along the left side of the window is the Object Info palette, which shows information associated with the selection, and the Navigation palette, which shows 6 of the organizational structures in the drawing: classes, layers, viewports, sheet layers, saved views, and references. Okay, moving on. For many entertainment professionals, beginning a project often involves starting with the venue. If the venue is not available as an existing file, you can start with an image file of the plan or a file with the site survey. You can then scale the image, create a new design layer for the venue, and trace some basic two-dimensional surfaces over the image, such as rectangles, polygons, and curves such as circles and arcs to represent the room area in scale. You can combine shapes and modify them in either a plan view or in a 3D view to get the shape that you need. You can reshape and add or subtract surfaces to create the necessary details with the shape. You can then process the shape in various ways to create a 3D massing model. Vectorworks offers a number of tools for this purpose. Primarily, Vectorworks has conversion operations like combining surfaces, which are created with tools that create a closed figure like rectangles, circles, and polygons, and where you can use simple overlapping shapes to create more complex shapes that would be more difficult to draw all in one go. Then, you can use the resulting shape to create walls or other venue elements, such as floors and ceilings, and use the program's door, window, and other parametric objects to add the necessary shapes to capture the essential character of the venue. For the coffered dome in this space, I'm going to use the Surface Array tool, which combines the outline of the dome, or base surface, and the repeating object, or array element. Here is an example where Vectorworks advanced modeling tools can be used to create geometry that would be impossible with other software. Vectorworks is calculating the molding in the square sample to wrap around the curve of the dome shape in the ceiling. Vectorworks provides a lot of precise tools so that I don't have to calculate where things need to be placed. Here, I'm using a 3D alignment command to align the bottom of the dome precisely to the ceiling. Let's take a look inside to see what it looks like. I have a camera set up from the inside, and I'll use the visualization palette to activate it. Now we just have to use the look around tool to turn our gaze upwards. It's gorgeous. You can see that there is some faceting along the edge of the circular dome, though. That's because of the rendering mode that I've used. This mode is quite quick, but it makes some compromises. I'll run another rendering command that's more precise. This one takes a little longer, but the results are quite satisfying. Now, let's look at worksheets as an example of Vectorworks' relational database power to present non-graphical data that has been extracted from the model. This represents an important capability which is built into Vectorworks. You can process non-graphical information such as channel, color, any information, including takeoff and linear qualities, as well as areas and volumes that are part of the model. You can extract and display this data on sheet layers along with 3D geometry and 2D projections. You can view, edit, and process the data that objects contain to ultimately drive the design decisions that are impossible to make accurately without this capability. This example shows the case and item ID of a touring art exhibition based on the item's location in a large multi-room exhibit space. The worksheet dynamically reports the location of the art on tour as it is changed from venue to venue. Curators can move the artwork from room to room as they plan the show, and the worksheet can be updated with a menu command to show the new distribution on each stop of the tour. The worksheet is handed to the crew in each venue so that they can locate the artwork on the loading dock by case ID and bring it to the correct gallery. When the show is going to be packed up for shipment to the next venue, the worksheet is sorted by case ID so that the crew can reassemble the artworks back into the correct shipping cases. Lighting design is where Vectorworks began the journey towards becoming the entertainment industry's standard for design and documentation. And we continue to maintain a sharp awareness of the needs of lighting designers, as well as master electricians, board operators, and others involved with live lighting in the theatrical, film and TV, exhibit and trade show, touring and festivals, and all types of live events. In addition to lighting design and documentation, there are many other elements of production that Spotlight supports within its complete range of capabilities. Scenic designers have comprehensive tools to create traditional scenic elements such as flats, door frames, and platforms, as well as original, unique shapes with the array of tools in Vectorworks. There are many built-in tools that technical directors love to use in Spotlight. They use the scenic designer's design models to create construction documents showing how the scenery will be built. When both the scenic designer and the technical director use Vectorworks Spotlight for a production, the communication and file sharing is a more seamless process. Let's take a look at a typical workflow, where the tech director receives a series of elevations from the scenic designer. The process is simple and follows a traditional approach where the designer's front elevations are simply flipped and the framing is laid in. The TD creates a referenced viewport so that the scenic plates are not altered, yet any changes will be transmitted to the TD's construction set. Our polygon tool is configured to trace in the outline of the flats with framing. Our trim tool is used to control where the butts of the rails and stiles are created. Another couple of strokes create the toggles, and the whole flat is optionally ready for extruding into dimensional framing. The next process is similarly simple. Here, the dimensions and notes are laid in, and the stock is assigned to a class to be counted in the cut list worksheet. The molding uses classic profiles and our extrude along path command. Many of the steps are eliminated for tech directors who use Vectorworks tools alongside the other production team members. One of the largest segments that we serve in the entertainment industry is event planning. We have complete functionality for this market, and we are proud to offer a complete range of capabilities to create all manner of events, from typical exhibition booths and business meetings all the way up to the largest live events around the world, like the Super Bowl and the Olympics. Among our complete set of world-class events tools that are provided are a complete seating layout capability. Here, we will lay in the outlines of the seating areas as polygons formed from clipped surfaces, as well as video projection with multiple projector and screens capability, LED screens, audio planning and documentation tools, and the tools for all of the standard soft goods, crowd control, staging, planning, and layout. Before moving on, I'd like to mention that as projects get more complex and more time-consuming, larger teams might be required to get projects completed within the typically short production schedule. Vectorworks offers a multi-user environment called project sharing. It works on the principle of the central project file that's kept in the Vectorworks Cloud Services folder, or a local network server, while each user keeps their own working files locally on their machine. A team member's changes to their local working file is then checked into the project file so that all parties can view the updated model. This system supports the entire production team and serves as a tool that links the team so that all the disciplines can view and respond to changes, while the project file on the server remains current for all. Project files can also be stored on a cloud-based system like Dropbox, which is ideal for teams working in different parts of the world. Let's talk a little bit about rendering. Rendering is another area where Vectorworks excels. Our rendering engine, Renderworks, uses the broadcast quality Maxon Cinema 4D rendering engine, and it's built right into Vectorworks. So there's no need to leave the familiar Vectorworks interface. It's just a simple drop-down menu. You can render your model views right in the sheet layer with a number of settings, from the sort of baseline OpenGL to the more advanced settings in Custom Renderworks, where you can set up hazy environments that catch the light beams, create textures that suggest accurate materials with transparency, reflections, glowing elements, backlighting, and 3D textures with thickness that cast their own shadows without having to create the 3D geometry. Also, with our Renderworks camera, you can set projections to simulate most any camera. The question often comes up regarding how much time it takes to create a rendering, and the answer is not a simple one. A lot depends on how the file was constructed, how many polygons are in the file, for example. Curved surfaces often require a large number of polygons, and therefore can take longer to render. But there are specialized commands and techniques and methods that you can use to improve the render times. How many light objects are in the scene, how many bounces of light there are, and many other factors determine the rendering time. There are many approaches to building files that render more quickly, and each approach is essentially a compromise somewhere on the spectrum of ultimate realism and very quick render time. Ultimately, it comes down to balancing the complexity of the scene and the sophistication of the hardware that is used to create the rendering. Our system requirements for the latest version of Vectorworks are always available on our forum at the address listed on the image. With WebView, Vectorworks has the ability to create a copy of your 3D model file that can then be viewed by anyone on any platform without needing their own copy of Vectorworks. All the client needs is a web browser. I'll use a command called export to web view. The file can then be stored in the cloud or locally on your hard drive. Once the file is created, the link can then be copied and shared. And like I mentioned, using any web browser, it can be viewed from any angle. It has walkthrough capability, and it can also be viewed in section by using the Clip Cube tool. And here's another way that our cloud services can help with your presentations. You can create 360-degree panoramas of your projects. Once the project is modeled, you can create panoramas and then create hotspots that let you jump from one place to another. The processing for this is also being done in the cloud. Once you have created the panorama file, you can use a mobile phone or tablet device to access the file. Your clients will get a real feel for what it's like to be standing in the room as they pan around with the device. You'll see the scene update as if you are in the space looking around. The panorama is saved as a link, so you can send it to anyone. What better way is there to stimulate the imagination and generate excitement with your clients and team about their show without even having anything real built yet? Your interest in Spotlight may indicate a potential interest in Vision, our pre-visualization application for viewing lighting cues in a document window using a lighting or software console. And you may be interested in Braceworks, which is a plug-in module that analyzes suspended loads that you model right in Vectorworks. Vision puts the power to pre-visualize and cue your show at your fingertips. Available for both Mac and PC operating systems, this intuitive software works with your console and equips you to design effectively and efficiently. You will save time and money by pre-visualizing what your rig can do without needing to travel to the venue or having your crew stand by. If you have ever wanted to rough in some cues or needed some more time to program your show before Tech Week, or even wanted to show your clients your ideas for the next concert ahead of time, then Vision may be exactly what you're looking for. Vision shows lighting cues from a DMX stream, such as a lighting console, acting on a simulated lighting rig in a document window on your computer. Our recent releases have had significant performance increases and more control of moving objects. The Braceworks add-on module for Vectorworks Spotlight provides design, production, and rigging professionals with an easy way to gauge the performance of temporary structures under load. This one-of-a-kind module helps ensure safety and compliance with engineering codes and standards, creating a completely integrated modeling, analysis, and documentation process in one interface. In closing, I'd like to thank you for attending this overview of Vectorworks Spotlight. We looked at how Spotlight serves the many disciplines in the entertainment industry and how it helps you to realize your creative visions. Thank you for your interest in Spotlight, your all-in-one solution for design, documentation, and production. If you have requested an evaluation copy of Vectorworks Spotlight, a member of our team will be contacting you shortly. Thank you.